In this video, we talk about the times when the Griffins defied gravity. Just like that, or like that, or even like that. And every time situations get crazier and crazier. Let's start with the episode Space Cadet, where a small mistake sent the whole Griffin family into space. The story began at school. Chris had problems and his parents were called in to see the principal.
Mr. and Mrs. Griffin, I called you in today because your son, Chris, has been getting in quite a bit of trouble lately.
The principal explained that Chris didn't meet the usual expectations for kids his age. A polite way of calling someone stupid. School still planned to teach him, but his chances for the future were nearly gone. This made Lois and Peter very sad. They felt disappointed as parents and talked about it before going to sleep.
Peter, I'm really worried about Chris. What are we gonna do about him?
Let's face it, Lois, the kid's an idiot. What the hell happened to all the smart genes in this family?
You're the reason, Peter. You're the reason. Chris heard what they said. He felt even worse, knowing that his parents thought he was dumb. Lois and Peter began to feel guilty because of it. They decided to send Chris to camp to cheer him up.
Chris, we were thinking of sending you to camp, and we're gonna let you choose which one.
Chris chose space camp. It was full of math, science, and real astronauts. Maybe not the best place for someone who has just been called an idiot? When Chris got there, he was excited about all the new things. But slowly, he lost confidence. Chris began to feel like he didn't belong there.
Mom, I hate it here. I want to come home. All the kids are mean and I keep messing everything up.
The family went to the camp to bring Chris home. As a thank you, he gave them a tour of the shuttle. Everyone happily joined.
Look at this, Lois. A week ago, we called him stupid, and now he's giving tours of the space shuttle.
But the tour went very wrong when Stewie accidentally hit the launch button. The shuttle launched into space and floated in Earth's orbit. For the first time, the family felt weightless. This definitely is a new experience for Peter. While the Griffins explored this new feeling, NASA contacted them to help.
Well, fortunately, the ship runs on autopilot. We just need some time to figure out your coordinates and calculate the re-entry plan.
While they waited to be rescued, the Griffins floated around the spaceship. Peter even went on a spacewalk. Luckily, NASA soon started the autopilot and retrieved them back to Earth. After gaining this wild experience, the Griffin family made it back home safely. This time, the Griffins defied gravity by accidentally flying into space. What began as a little adventure quickly took a serious turn. When it comes to NASA, even a small mistake could transform fun into tragedy. The Griffins avoided the tragedy, but in the next episode, Road to the North Pole, the families challenged the laws of physics again. This time, Stewie and Brian left the ordinary world to live in a real fairy tale. The story happens on Christmas. Stewie and Brian went to the Quagmire Mall to visit Santa Claus, but after waiting in line for a very long time, they didn't get a chance to tell Santa what Stewie wanted, and it made Stewie furious.
That son of a bitch! He just turned his back on me!
He wasn't going to forgive Santa for his rudeness. The next day, Stewie went on a trip to find Santa. He took Brian along for company. Stewie had a gift for dragging Brian into any of his nonsense. They drove all the way to the North Pole through the US and Canada until they had a car crash. After that, they borrowed a snow bike and continued the journey, but it ran out of gas, so they had to walk to the North Pole. Finally, they reached their destination.
My God! We made it, Brian! The North Pole! See? Boom! Right there!
They found Santa's house and even met the man himself. That was when the hard truth was revealed to them. Santa was sick and completely exhausted. Because of population growth and rising demands from kids, he could no longer do his job.
Oh my God!
Typical ending for an Amazon warehouse worker. The local doctor checked Santa and gave him a sad verdict. If Santa worked this Christmas, he would die. This news shocked Stewie.
Well then, who's gonna deliver all the presents?
We will.
What?
Brian and Stewie decided to save the holiday and take Santa's place. They began to prepare his sleigh for work. The elves loaded a huge bag of gifts and brought out zombie reindeer. I didn't know the North Pole had a Resident Evil crossover episode personally. Fully prepared, they climbed into the sleigh and flew into the sky. Brian and Stewie reached their first city. The landing went, well, terribly wrong, and they lost all their reindeer. In the first house, they made a massive mess.
Oh my God, we're in the wrong house! Damn it, we tripped the alarm! Brian, the cops are coming, let's go!
Trying to avoid consequences, they had to fly up again, but without reindeers. Luckily, Stewie was ready.
Besides, we don't need them. I made a few modifications. Hang on!
They flew up and escaped the outcome, but this attempt to deliver gifts made them realize that the whole system had to change. So instead of delivering presents, they decided to send a message. They brought Santa to the news studio, and Brian gave a speech.
If all of us everywhere can just cut back our demands and ask for only one Christmas present every year, there may still be hope.
Their plan worked, and they saved Christmas for at least a few more years, but definitely ruined this one. In the story, Stewie and Brian help save Christmas by taking Santa's place in the high-flying sleigh. It's the right thing to help someone in a tough situation, especially when it benefits everyone. But in the episode Petergeist, Griffins didn't do the right thing. As a result, they triggered a series of supernatural events, including portals, ghosts, and even a flying house. The story started out on a movie night. Joe Swanson gathered all of his friends in his home's movie theater. It seems the Quahog Police had gotten a good pay raise. The event went well, which made Peter angry. He used to host movie night himself.
Freaking Joe with his home theater has to top everything I do. Well, tomorrow I'm gonna go to that Home Supply and I'm gonna build an entire multiplex.
Peter bought material and started construction. While digging a hole for the foundation, he found a skull.
Wow, authentic Native American remains. Peter, I'd put that back if I were you. You may be disturbing a sacred burial site.
Forgotten Indian Cemetery? Admit it, this episode was written by Stephen King. Peter ignored Brian's warnings. He took the skull home and started playing with it like a toy. The consequences of disrespect came instantly. That night, the TV became possessed and started talking to Stewie. This scared Brian, of course. He started to worry about what might happen because of Peter's actions.
I'm just saying, maybe we have a poltergeist.
Ryan, there's no such thing as ghosts.
As if to defy her words, the kitchen furniture floated and formed a strange pyramid. The poltergeist could make a fortune working in home moving. The next night brought more supernatural chaos. Stewie and everything in his room got sucked into a portal. The family realized Stewie was now in another dimension. They called a medium for help. The medium said Stewie had to find his own way back.
Are you sure Stewie can find his way out?
We just gotta be patient, Lois.
Lois wasn't really ready to wait. She went through the portal and brought her baby back. Unfortunately, she also led a group of ghosts back with her. The angry spirits took revenge by moving the entire house into another dimension. The Griffins didn't want to give up their home. They went to the library and found a solution in an old book.
All right, here it is. To vanquish poltergeists, one must restore all disturbed remains to their original resting places.
So all we gotta do is bring the skull back home and bury it.
Even cockroaches are harder to get rid of. The family went back to the hole where Peter had found the skull and buried it. After that, the house returned to its normal place. The happy Griffins went back to their usual life. The Griffins family faced supernatural forces that defied their usual order of things. The story showed us, if there really are forces beyond reach, their consequences might be too much for us to handle. In the episode Wasted Talent, Peter couldn't handle consequences either. His search for a lifetime beer supply almost got him killed by a giant fan. The story began when a local brewery announced the giveaway of 4 silver tickets for the first tour inside the workshops and a lifetime supply of beer. The silver tickets were hidden in random beer bottles. Willy Wonka, but for alcoholics. Every drunk in the city became obsessed with the idea of winning. Peter wasn't an exception. He also started searching. His obsessions made him drink all day long, which really disturbed Lois.
Why do you care so much about touring a stupid brewery?
Lois, everyone has their sanctuary. The Catholics have churches, fat people have Wisconsin, and I have the Pawtucket Brewery.
Despite Peter's efforts, Joe was the first who found a scroll. While Peter was at work, 2 more were discovered. He was almost desperate when he accidentally found the last silver ticket.
Oh God. What the hell? I found it! I found the last scroll!
The next day, Peter and the rest of the lucky ones came to the gate of the brewery. The ticket allowed 1 more person, so Peter took Brian. They were about to get a tour and a lifetime supply of beer.
It's all behind this door. Lady and gentlemen, the beer room.
Now we know how beer alcoholics imagine paradise. At one point during the tour, the guide showed a room with their latest development, beer that stayed carbonated forever. Entry into the room was forbidden. However, Peter couldn't resist, so he went inside to try the new beer.
Wow, that's incredible!
Oh, what the hell. Cheers.
Then as they swallowed the beer, they began floating. Brian and Peter were enjoying the flight until they noticed the danger. The airflow carried them up straight into a giant fan.
Holy crap! There's nothing to grab onto! Oh, this is it, pal. We're goners.
At the last moment, they realized they could save themselves if they let out gas from the beer. So they started farting a lot. And it worked. They slowly floated back down. This is not a story you will tell in decent company, I gather. The angry guide was already waiting for them downstairs.
You've sullied my factory and disobeyed my rules. I want you to leave immediately.
Peter and Brian were kicked out of the brewery. Very dumb reason to lose a lifetime supply of beer, if you ask me. In the story, Brian and Peter almost died on a field trip because of their love of beer. Even without flights to giant fans, beer alcoholism is a serious threat to life and health. It'd be better if people warned each other against such hobbies rather than encouraging them. A good warning can prevent many unpleasant situations. But Peter didn't get one in time. So in the episode, The Fat Guy Strangler, he became so fat that he began pulling in other random objects, but also some serious problems. The story started when it came time for Peter to check his health.
Peter, don't forget you have a physical today.
He was absolutely not happy about it. So he teamed up with Brian to trick Lois. They dressed in a horse costume to sneak out, because a full-size horse didn't draw any attention. After the successful fraud, Peter went to a steak party with his friends. But when he returned, Lois revealed that she knew he hadn't gone to the doctor. Now he was forced to do a real visit. At the hospital, the doctor checked on Peter and announced his verdict.
Please just tell us, is Peter healthy?
Oh yeah, he's fine. He's just really fat.
The doctor's words shook Peter. Why? He doesn't own a mirror. He didn't want to accept his weight or admit he had a problem. Brian acted as the voice of reason and tried to convince Peter the doctor was right. When words didn't work, Brian used a practical trick.
See this?
Yeah.
You know what it is?
Duh, it's an apple.
Good, good, good. All right, watch this.
What the hell? What is this?
This proof made Peter very sad. He finally acknowledged that he was overweight, but that still wasn't enough to push him to change. However, he got an even bigger problem when Lois's brother Patrick visited. Lois had invited him to stay at their house. Unfortunately, Patrick was a serial killer who hunted fat guys.
Quahog's newest serial killer has struck again. Since the first victim at Quahog Park last week, 3 more men have been killed. All of them very, very fat.
Brian and Lois were terrified when they learned the truth. They rushed to the woods because Peter and Patrick had gone there. Fortunately, they arrived just in time to stop the murder.
Patrick, let him go!
Lois managed to save Peter. Patrick was sent back to the asylum, but the story didn't become a lesson for Peter. He stayed fat enough to have his own orbit. In the story, Peter became so fat that he practically developed his own gravitational pull, but even the new ability couldn't save him from this maniac. Serial killers aren't common in real life, but obesity is a very real threat. Accepting yourself is great, but it's wise not to go beyond reasonable limits. Oh, but being wise isn't for Peter, as he proved in the latest episode, LASIK Instinct. This time, he managed to launch himself into the sky, just like a balloon. The story began when Lois drove Stewie to kindergarten. She was going to drive home, but after starting the car, she hit something.
Oh my god, please be a dog, please be a dog.
Her nightmare came true. It was a kid from kindergarten, Doug. Now she had to deal with the consequences and meet the parents. Parents, not cops yet, Lois. Breathe out a little. Doug's parents turned out to be normal guys who understood the situation.
Okay, well, I am just so sorry about what happened with Doug. I just didn't see the little guy.
Well, maybe you ought to get your eyes examined.
Lois took their advice and went to the doctor. The doctor found a vision problem. Now Lois has 2 options, either glasses or corrective surgery, LASIK.
Fine, I'll get the LASIK.
Great. Make an appointment with my nurse.
Did Peter get a promotion or what? Where did the money for the treatment come from? The surgery went wrong and Lois woke up totally blind. Her family was there to support her. Meg even brought her a nice balloon to cheer her up. But then Peter's intrusive thoughts kicked in.
Mom, we got you a balloon.
Shh. She doesn't know about the balloon. Don't worry, Lois. We'll be right by your side the whole time and not outside playing with a balloon.
Excited by his new toy, Peter ran outside and started to play, but the balloon slipped from his hands and flew away. Trying to catch it, Peter inflated himself and flew after it.
Don't tell your mother about this.
To catch the balloon, you have to think like a balloon. Peter didn't catch the balloon, but did manage to land safely. However, Lois wasn't so lucky. She was still blind. Only after a few days did her vision return.
Oh my god. I can see.
Now everything in the Griffin family was back in its place. In this story, Peter once again went beyond all limits and defied gravity in pursuit of another ridiculous idea. When such incidents become routine, it may be time to rethink some choices, especially the embarrassing ones. But in the episode, Girlfriend A, Lois embarrassed herself even more ridiculously than Peter. This time, her admiration for the handyman literally made her lose ground under her feet. This story started when Stewie decided to exercise on the treadmill. He misjudged the speed and flew straight into the wall. It's not defying gravity, but it's still pretty funny. Peter failed to fix it because instead of working, he was just playing with his tools. Lois wasn't in the mood to wait for Peter to get to work.
Enough, Peter. I'm calling a handyman.
The handyman arrived the same day, and he turned out to be very attractive. But it wasn't just his looks. Everything he said just sounded suspiciously suggestive.
I heard you had a hole that needed to be filled.
Yes. Is that a big job?
Nothing my cock can't handle.
Did he work as a stripper before? Does he talk the same way at home? His appearance drove Lois crazy, so she literally launched herself like a rocket.
We have liftoff on Operation Thirsty Housewife.
The handyman started fixing the wall while Lois, Meg, and even Stewie were mesmerized. To keep him around, they began breaking things on purpose.
Okay, so for tomorrow, could you fix a few windows, a door ripped off its hinges, and a thermostat that was smashed with a fire poker?
For Stewie, it was just a brief distraction. Lois and Meg turned into a rivalry. They dressed up, fought, traded insults.
Hey, Mom, I'm doing a school report. Who was president when you were born?
Huh, Dwight D. Oh, you bitch. Clinton. Dwight D. Clinton.
But at one point, things went too far, and the handyman became the victim of their rivalry. Ended up electrocuted, and if that wasn't enough, he got hit by a truck. Well, at least today's repairs were free. Lois and Meg, finally humbled, went to his funeral. That ended their competition. In the episode, Lois's desire for the handyman overcame gravity and made her fly. Competition for such a handsome man caused conflict with Meg, until his death finally taught them a lesson. It's much better when people realize on their own that blindly chasing temptation is never worth it. What's definitely worth chasing, though, is self-improvement. However, in the episode, Stew-Roids, Stewie took things way too far and ended up literally flying away to save himself. The story began at a backyard barbecue at Joe's place. Everything was peaceful until Susie and Stewie started fighting over a doll. Stewie got completely wrecked.
Ha! Your kid got beat up by a baby girl!
Peter was humiliated and decided it was time to toughen up his son. Training started with the essentials: drinking beer and watching TV. Critical life skills. How are they not in the school curriculum yet? For the next lesson, Peter took Stewie to the gym.
All right, Stewie, we're gonna get you nice and pumped up.
But Stewie could barely lift anything. That's when a shady gym guy offered a quick fix.
Well, if there's anyone I can trust, it's a stranger at the gym holding a dirty needle. Here, Stewie, try this. Yeah!
Once the steroids kicked in, Stewie transformed fast. He returned home with a totally changed body. Most bodybuilders would sell their soul for this kind of progress. With his new muscles, Stewie became overconfident and started bullying Brian.
Where you think you're going? I'm going downstairs. Oh, there's a toll in the hole now. $10.
Look, can I... Stewie...
He kept harassing Brian, interrupting dinner, showing off, and flexing for no reason. But Stewie didn't know that Peter wasn't interested in him anymore. Therefore, he didn't bring him steroids. The next morning, Stewie woke up to an outcome.
Oh no!
What's happening? I'll tell you what's happening. Your steroids have worn off. You're weak like everyone else.
Brian saw his chance and tried to take revenge. Cornered, Stewie took a desperate leap. Stewie jumps. His loose skin worked like a wingsuit, letting him glide to safety. In this story, steroids abuse ended up with Stewie jumping out of a window to avoid a beating. He survived, but in real life, gravity is much harder to overcome, and showing off like that could have led to a far worse consequence. No reason to show off if people accept you for who you are, just like we do on our channel. So subscribe and hit that like button. And something tells me you'll like the video YouTube is suggesting on the screen right now too. See you there.